Hi there, my name is Eric Ang and I'm the founder and CEO of Admission Site. I've been helping students and parents navigate the college admissions process for almost 15 years, and we've helped hundreds of families crack admissions to schools like Harvard and the Ivy League. Today, I'm going to break down exactly what it takes to get into a top school like Harvard, which has a global brand name and clocks in roughly a 3% acceptance rate, one of the most competitive institutions in the country. And so, how do you get into Harvard? What does it take to get into a top school like Harvard? Let me break it all down for you in today's video. Number one, definitely your GPA. Your grade point average is one of the most important factors of your application, and we're looking for a 3.9 unweighted GPA out of 4.0, which really means no more than 2 or 3 B pluses. Ideally, you don't even have those B pluses, you have straight A's and get a 4.0, but at the minimum, a 3.9 unweighted. In addition, you want to take a rigorous course load. A rigorous course load to me means taking at least 8 AP exams by the conclusion of your junior year. So that might mean taking 1 AP exam your freshman year, 3 your sophomore year, and 4 or 5 your junior year. Going into the application cycle with 8 AP exams will dramatically increase your odds of admission. Outside of your GPA and APs, then we get into your SATs or ACTs. And for your SAT, we really want to see that you get a 1550 plus on the SATs or a 35 plus on the ACTs. If we're talking about strictly academics, these are some of the factors that Harvard's looking for. Your GPA, your SATs, and your APs. 8 AP exams, ideally all 5s or 4 and 5s on those AP exams. Now, beyond those factors, if we're strictly talking about academics, then we go on to what we call the regional and national academic competitions. So, admitted students at Harvard, they've been extremely accomplished academically, whether that means qualifying for like the Intel Science and Engineering Fair or the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium for a math and science student, or competing in the Scholastic Art and Writing Competition, or the John Locke Essay Contest, or the New York Times editorial for a humanities student, or getting published in the Concord Review. These are competitions that will definitely set yourself apart and help differentiate you outside of just GPA test scores and APs. Because let's face it, there are literally hundreds of thousands of students with perfect 4.0 GPAs, and they're all applying to these top schools. And so when there's all these top students with perfect GPAs, you need to stand out academically by competing in these regional or national academic competitions. And this is what we at an admissions site, we help our students navigate. We've helped students navigate by getting the Regina Science and Engineering Fair, becoming a finalist, and getting first place in their category, right? These competitions really help separate yourself apart. Now, beyond academics, then we enter this second part of this conversation, which is extracurricular activities. And I will tell you that Harvard, when it comes to extracurricular activities, they're really looking for world-class leaders who will make an impact in their community. World-class leadership, how do we define that? Is it being president of the chess club or starting an e-commerce site selling shoes? Does that count as world-class leadership in Harvard's eyes? Obviously, I've been consulting students for well over close to 15 years now, and I will say that if I were to summarize in one sentence what schools like Harvard or Stanford or these Ivy Leagues, what are they ultimately looking for at the end of the day, is they're looking for this. They're looking for students with a demonstrated academic passion. What are you passionate about? Are you interested in physics, chemistry, political science, history, public policy, English, right? What are your academic passions? But more importantly, how do you leverage those academic passions to tackle a social issue or cause? What is the mission that you're passionate about? Is it environmental sustainability? Is it humanitarian rights? Is it increasing healthcare access? Is it climate change and global warming? What are the problems that you want to solve in society? Right? Our society is fraught with problems, and we want to see how you leverage your intellectual curiosity and your academic passions to tackle these social issues. I'll give you one example. We had a student who grew up with an autistic brother, unfortunately, and his academic passions is computer science. And so, how did he leverage computer science to tackle autism? Well, what we had him do was we made him make audio recordings of autistic children. And these audio recordings would feed into these machine learning algorithms that would improve speech impairment. So now we could then decipher and understand what these autistic children are speaking. And so that's a very clear evidence of how this student demonstrates his academic passions in tackling a social issue or cause. And he founded an organization around this, which impacted thousands of people or children. And so the scale of your impact also matters. And this is something we consult with our students on. Impacting thousands of children is much more impactful than impacting 5 or 6. And so how do you impact thousands of children? How do you go about doing that? This is what we mean by world-class leadership. Right? Being president of an organization that furthers a social mission or cause that means deeply to you, that you're truly passionate about, and leveraging your academic passions to take you there, but also having the impact of scale. And so this needs to be evident in your application. This needs to be evident in your portfolio of work, which is included in your application. And so we really help our students market their work so that they could stand out among their peers. The second factor that Harvard's looking for within the topic of extracurriculars is academic research. Ideally, you want published academic research, whether it's on the convolutional neural networks of Alzheimer's disease, for example, or econometric regressions on socioeconomic inequality or gentrification in your communities. You want to do research in your area of academic passions and ideally have published research so that this will help solidify your desire to push the forefront of knowledge. You have to keep in mind that these universities, at the end of the day, they're research-driven institutions. And so if you're able to get academic research published, and even better, if you could use this academic research to compete in science fairs, which we help many of our students do, like the Intel Science and Engineering Fair, or the Junior Science and Humanities Symposium, or other competitions like Davidson Fellows, which is a scholarship competition. This will increase your odds of getting into a top school like Harvard. The third factor, beyond your leadership organization and published academic research, is definitely school clubs and organizations. We want you to see a student who is really active in their school community, that they're really active in joining different clubs, whether it's Science Olympiad or Model United Nations or Speech and Debate. Obviously, these clubs exist at many schools, and so joining these clubs will not necessarily help you set yourself apart compared to your main leadership organization, but it's still helpful to showcase that you are indeed active in your school community, and these are additional clubs and organizations that you can report in your application as well. Beyond that, it's community service and volunteerism. Did you partner with autistic organizations, or did you volunteer at a senior care citizen center? And ideally, this should align with your social mission or cause. Community service is really important, and so you could also win awards there, like the Presidential Volunteering Service Award, which hands out bronze, silver, and gold. If you log in a certain number of hours working for a nonprofit organization, that is also helpful. And then the fifth thing here is summer programs, right? We want to see that you've attended a prestigious summer program. For a STEM student, that might mean the Research Science Institute, or the Simon Summer Program, or the Science Summer Program, SSP, or the Garcia Lab in Stony Brook. These are what we consider really heavy and really prestigious science research programs, where if you get into these summer programs, it would dramatically increase your odds of acceptance. For a humanities student, that might mean the Stanford Humanities Institute or the Iowa Young Writers Workshop or the Kenyan Review for Young Writers. These are humanities summer programs that would also dramatically increase your odds of acceptance to schools like Harvard. These humanities summer programs or these STEM programs, they're what we call like these feeder summer programs, right? It's like these really specific top 10 STEM or humanities programs which have a track record and history of sending kids to the Ivy League. Beyond the summer programs, then we get into what we consider more supplemental activities, and this could include athletics. So we highly recommend our students compete in a varsity sport. This might mean varsity basketball, tennis, or football. Having multiple varsity sports, or at least one varsity sport, is really helpful for schools like Harvard. Schools like Harvard, they really want to see that you're focused on your social mission, your cause, and focus in your academic passions. But they also want to see that you're well-rounded in the sense that you're also an athlete, that you've done a varsity sport, and that you've also done something in the arts, whether that's music or theater arts or painting or drawing. These are factors that would round out your profile to increase your odds of acceptance. And so to summarize, on the extracurricular front, we're looking at your main leadership organization. We're looking at academic research. We're looking at school clubs and organizations. We're looking at volunteerism and community service. We're looking at summer programs. We're looking at sports and art. Actually, when we consult with our students, we actually outline all of these action items in a 10-page single-space roadmap. And so we work with 80 students a year. I will say roughly only about 10% of them are able to accomplish 100% of what's in that roadmap. And keep in mind, this roadmap is extremely rigorous, right? It's 10 pages, single space, and it outlines exactly what you need to get into a school like Harvard. And so accomplishing everything in that roadmap is really difficult. We do set a high bar for what it takes to get into these schools, given how competitive it is. So we roughly have maybe 8 or 10 of those students who accomplish literally everything in that roadmap, 95% or more, and they all end up at fantastic schools. Top 5 schools: Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford, MIT, Caltech. No guarantees, of course, but it's extremely likely that they would end up at those places simply because of the strength of their applications, the strength of their profile, and how we help consult with them and guide them through this process. So that's what we're really looking for on the academic and extracurricular front. For academics, again, it's your GPA, it's your SAT or ACT scores, 8 APs or more by the conclusion of junior year, and then it's this entire universe of regional and national academic competitions where if you compete in those competitions and get those awards, it would also increase your odds of acceptance. Academics, extracurriculars, and then the third part is definitely the personal statements and supplemental essays of your college applications. I've always argued that a strong application, strong essays, and personal statements could, in theory, get a weaker student in. Student with a lower GPA or test scores. A weak application and weak essays could also keep a strong student out. I've seen valedictorians of their schools, kids who literally worked their tail off for 4 years and did amazing, have amazing academics, amazing extracurriculars, but they did not write the strongest personal statements. And so they didn't end up getting into their dream schools because of that. And so you definitely want to take your application really seriously and really put your best effort into writing amazing essays and personal statements that really reflect your personal qualities, how your perspectives shape, and how your viewpoints and the lessons that you learned and gained along the way. How did these experiences shape your perspectives and viewpoints and your worldview, and challenge you to think critically and introspectively within yourself? We're really looking for unique personal statements that really showcase your personal qualities, and this is something we work with our students on. We had a student who wrote one of his essays on cooking Gordon Ramsay's favorite recipes and how that sparked his interest in scientific research. because he had to experiment with different ingredients and recipes, and motivated him to tinker through hands-on exposure and conduct cutting-edge research in a lab over the summer. That motivated him to pursue research as a way to further shed light on specific diseases and provide greater accessibility to healthcare access as one of his main hooks or themes in his application. Obviously, this student also did really well facing things like the Regeneron Science Talent Search and the Intel Science and Engineering Fair. And so when you create a comprehensive application like that, your odds of getting into a school like Harvard will go up astronomically. So you really want to get these three factors right. You really want to get your academics, have amazing academics, amazing extracurriculars, and amazing personal statements and essays. If you could get these 3 stars to align, then I promise you, you'll have a great shot at getting into a school like Harvard, even as competitive as it is today. We guide our students through this process. We not only consult with them, but we also help with the execution. Whether you want published research or you want to start your organization or apply to these summer programs or compete in these academic competitions, because consulting is not enough, right? You need the strategy, but you also need the execution. And so we really walk our students through this entire process, really step by step. Beyond these factors are, letters of recommendation, which are also really important and a crucial part of your application. You need a letter of recommendation from your school counselor, 2 teacher recommendation letters, and most schools will allow an optional recommendation letter and sometimes even 2 optional recommendation letters, which I highly recommend that you submit. And so those recommendation letters will share a third-party point of view on really the quality of applicant that you really are. So you do want to build those relationships early with your mentors, with your teachers, with your school counselors, because those recommendation letters carry a lot of weight. And there's a lot of strategy involved into getting the best recommendation letters possible. And then the last factor is an interview. Okay, the interview is conducted by the alumni of these schools, and so if I were to give it a weighting, it's probably 1% of this entire process. But I still would vouch that a strong interview can move the needle sometimes. And so if you get all these factors right, this is really what it takes to get into Harvard. Amazing academics, amazing extracurriculars, amazing personal statements. I've always said that schools like Harvard and the Ivy League, they accept applications. They don't necessarily accept students. And so whatever goes into application, whatever goes into your portfolio of work, you really want to make the best of it. And so if I were to summarize what Harvard's really looking for, more so than other schools like Caltech or MIT, is they're really looking for world-class leadership. They really want to see the impact and scale in the leadership and scale and impact of the organization that you have. And so if you could get these parts right, then you've got a great shot at getting into Harvard. The last thing I really want to talk about is Harvard. Another way to demonstrate this world-class leadership is also being student body president. Harvard loves admitting students who have been student body president of their school. But obviously, this is also really competitive. It ends up being a popularity contest. So more often than not, we help our students establish their own nonprofit and their own organization. Whereas, they have to get elected by their school and their classmates. It's a luck of the draw, and it's popularity contest and much more difficult. So more often than not, we will guide our students through establishing their nonprofit organization. So if you liked what we talked about today, feel free to hit the subscribe button and give us a like on our YouTube channel. We'll be sharing more tips and advice on the college admissions process, and I hope this helps you as you navigate your college admissions journey into getting into a top school like Harvard.